Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have another fascinating conversation with Debbi Dachinger. She is so fabulous in her wisdom that she brings forth. Not only is she trained in shamanism and working with animals that we can use to empower our lives, but she's also a lead reporter, influencer, investigator of extraterrestrials. And so this is all about cosmic with you and ET things. Hi, Debbi. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome back.
Laura, I'm so excited to deep dive into this with you, with your audience. This subject is so near and dear to my heart. And I have, over the course of my career, if you will, it really doesn't feel like work. It's so my life's mission and who I am. But marrying the shamanism and this extraterrestrial information, which sometimes is very independent, sometimes is woven together, and this extraterrestrial conversation, I'm sure you will agree, this is not a one and done static talk. This is something that keeps evolving. And the deeper you get into it, the more I learn, the more I want to learn. And this journalist comes out of me. And I am so grateful to be on this journey of me as an experiencer, me of being in contact with my galactic family, and also just me as a amazing researcher and in contact with a lot of people who talk about this. This subject is so close and definitely what I'm supposed to be doing in this life.
And yes, you are doing it, Debbi, and you're doing a fabulous job. Really exciting. You're on Gaia TV and you're getting out there in the world. And that is just more will be revealed with that. It's really exciting. All right, you said something that really struck a fancy in me, and I'd like you to share your ET experiences. We're going to talk about all things ET, but wow, what was it like for you? How old were you? When did that first happen? And what fear did you have to move through, if any?
Different story than most people, because if I had youthful experiences, I'm unaware of them. And my experiences started well into my adulthood. And what makes me very different from other people is I didn't believe in this. I thought that people who talked about extraterrestrials, UFOs, were cuckoo. And I was a huge eye roller, very spiritual person. And I thought they were nuts. And so that's where I lived. And then I had this unprecedented experience where the divine, literally a feminine divine God, came to me and said to me, Debbi, you're a shaman, you're a priestess, you're a healer. I was really confused. Even though I was into healing modalities, as in visiting healers, or I had a lot of friends who were healers, or people who came on my podcast to speak were healers, I was surrounded by it, but I had no identification in myself, and certainly not as a shaman. I thought that was actually embarrassing because I knew what it took to become a shaman. So I argued a lot with her, but she came back every single night and she would not let up. And each night she showed me another piece of myself with that same mantra. You're a shaman, you're a healer, you're a priestess. And because it was so confusing to me, I used my research or journalist skills and just started deep diving. What does a shamanism mean? And a friend gifted me with some experiences, some regressions. And thankfully, they were very successful. And I immediately knew that I had many, many lifetimes as a shaman, male and female. And in the final session we did, I then saw myself as a female Mayan priestess living in a temple. And I was a leader of her people. What was interesting, Loren, is I was very skinny, not healthy on this planet, skinny, and I was well over 7 feet tall. I didn't need this aspect of me didn't need to use words. She communicated telepathically. She had a potency, a power unlike anything I'd ever seen here on earth. And I felt what seemed like many hours with her. And before I left, I asked her, with a lot of assumptions on my part about who she was and how she could do what she did. And she shook her head and just said telepathically, I'm not from here. I'm from another galaxy. And so I came out of that experience, and it was a big for me. And the was, oh my God, this stuff is real. And not only have I had past lives, but I have concurrent lives, and some of them are galactic. And I had zero resistance, zero fear. I was so fascinated. And because the truth was so solid in me, I immediately went on that path. What does that mean? And thankfully, because of my show, my podcast, Dare to Dream, I was able to bring tons of amazing people like Wendy Kennedy and like Jamie Price and Daryl Anka and a lot of people in that realm onto my show to have these deep conversations and channelings with because I was hungry for the information. And so that started that aspect, which was just massive curiosity and fascination. And thankfully, I was then able to align myself with some folks who did big work, big channeling work. They're very well known, CE5s, all this stuff. And I immediately started having experiences, immediately saw UFOs. They revealed themselves to me. I saw um, a sphere. It's quite beautiful. And I have a picture of this. Thank God. This sphere was so enormous. It was captured on my phone that it overtook an entire tree out in the desert in Arizona. And it was a consciousness. It was not a little orb like we're used to seeing, like a little angelic orb. It was huge and made of creamy white and blue and pink and all these amazing colors. And apparently, a consciousness that was very interested in me. And it just kept going till I started to know my galactic family and who my dominance is, who's working with me and helping me in this lifetime, the species that I come from. They started visiting me in dreams. And because this has been such a benevolent, wonderful experience where I feel very loved, very held, very positive, you know? I mean, I'm kind of one of those people who's been like, oh, death. Not very excited about that prospect. And I feel more at peace about the idea of whenever I will pass because I know who I'm going to meet. I know some of who I'm going to meet, and it's glorious. So this experience, still to this day, has really been magnificent with no fear and an enormous amount of hope about what's ahead, an enormous amount of excitement about who's aware of us and what they like to do when the opportunity and timeline presents itself. So, yes, I was well into my adulthood when all of this started, and it was not where I thought I would end up.
I love that. And the reason I love it, Debbie, is because it shows us that the journey, you learn this from within. You were doing the work within yourself, and that led to experiences that shows consciousness. Because the conversation around spirituality, in the beginning, you didn't believe in any of it. But as we're talking consciousness, the extraterrestrials absolutely come into that conversation. And so you did it without fear, without, and so I'm looking back at even in my own life and then talking to so many other people where they have it. And at first, it could be fear. Like if we see a craft, it could be fear, or it's doing something to us so that we're not so fearful. So it's really quite fascinating. And I just love how you were guided. You were guided, you listened, you connected. And so That is the journey that we're all on. So when you talk of this timeline, this opportunity for a meeting, have you been given any indication of when or what that we don't have to put a timeline on it, but what might that look like? Have you envisioned it?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I am aware of it. Um, yeah, sure. Beautiful. And I love this question because it's exciting and it's the unknown, right?
Mhm.
And I hope one day we can play a clip of this and it will actually be so. And you could say, see, when we had this conversation, they have been in contact with us since the beginning of time. They seeded this planet. So I want to be clear that we are not Earth people. We are comprised of thousands of genetic strains of species. And there are dominant species involved in that, but thousands that created us into Homo sapiens. So we are them. They are us in the future. And they are very advanced. They don't, most of them need language and many of the things we need, and they certainly don't behave like we do. But we, being the very brave, interesting creatures we are, chose this lifetime of great duality on this planet. And they have been visiting us when it became the news since 1933. So, just to be clear again, since the beginning of time, yes, and they were here first. 1933 is when the first crash happened, something called Magenta in Italy. And then we all know about the 1940s and Roswell and so on and so on and so on and so forth. They have been engaging with our governments and they have been very frustrated with our governments because some of that has been in trade where the governments have said, okay, great. Why don't you give us your advanced technology and in exchange you can some of it's not very nice from many decades ago where the government actually said, and you can take some of our people. Although they were very clear about which people, and it was often the Greys doing this work, would take other people that they were not allowed to take. So that was part of a hybrid program. And there's a whole reason for that with the Greys. All of that to say, they still have kept up at it with the government. There's even been extraterrestrials who have met, are in pictures that we still have to this day, where we all know the extraterrestrial who was involved during the Eisenhower time, Truman time.
Valiant Thor. Let's just say his name, Val Thor, Valiant Thor. And
Thank you.
that's an amazing story. And I just want to share, to me, that's very real. It lights my body up. And I've actually looked up at a cloud and it was kind of like that orb, kind of like what you saw, but it was more of a rainbow cloud. And I heard, I am Commander Val Thor. So that's very interesting. Go ahead, continue your story because that has been out there. Why is our government keeping it quiet? Because they'll lose control, right? It's pretty obvious.
Very complicated subject, but
Mhm.
I want to address it because it's an important question. And I think awareness is a beautiful thing. The more we are aware, not the more we fear, the more we are aware, the more we can choose and change and be who we came here to be. And so it is twofold to be very clear. There is something very real called the deep state, and they control things way beyond the government. And then there is the government, and they are very concerned, and as they have been, and their party line has been, we can't tell them, they will be terrified, and pure chaos will reign. Now, for many of us who are fascinated by this, that's not true. But the media has done a great job at scaring people in the movies and TV about how horrifying the extraterrestrials are. But you know, if they wanted to do that, they would have a long time ago. So it's just really entertainment in the media. So that's what's going on. It's the deep state, it's the government. But I want to give you the good news and the now news. The good news is there are whistleblowers. And even though there may be frustration, oh, they can only say so much. It's very true. They can only say so much. And many of them are in fear for their lives and have had terrible things happen. Still, these incredibly brave men and women are part of opening up contact for us. Also, when you look at the cover, for instance, of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, that is an activation. People are getting activated. Another example, Loren, when I was with you on this platform, your show, I think it was a year and a half ago. At that time, you said to me, Debbi, we can't talk about this extraterrestrial stuff. My audience isn't really into it, or it was a little much, right? And so we talked about other shamanic stuff. It was a beautiful experience. Today, you said, come on in, I want to talk about this. That shows the massive awakening happening on this planet. People waking up all of a sudden, plumbers, real estate people, all of a sudden are channeling, all of a sudden are speaking light language, are going much like me from this is complete bunk to total awakening around all these things. And it is so beautiful. There are platforms like mine where I use my podcast. This is what I talk about. These are the people I have on to have these discussions. And when they channel the extraterrestrials, that's first wave contact. So this is happening beautifully, perfectly. And when you people go to see channelers that you really love who channel this information, also, you are receiving. You don't have to see them in their true form. You are receiving direct contact, wisdom, information, and activations. So, where we sit right now, Loren, is we are in it. We are thick in it, where the extraterrestrials are more and more revealing themselves. The consciousness that we've seen, for instance, in Three Eye Atlas, BB, that's just some of it, because more and more is going to happen. We are, as you might know, in the year. This year and next year, where it is said that something this summer and towards the end of the year, unprecedented, is going to happen. I know it will not look like any of us think it looks because, again, we're all programmed by media, these landings on the White House. And they've already said, I will tell you right now, the Pleiadians, at the very least, if not the other species, have said to the government, we are not waiting. We have waited for you far too long, and the time is now. And the other thing is for everybody out there who is excited, desirous of this to happen, be very mindful of where your energy is right now, because we are choosing constantly our life, but our timeline. And we want to choose the highest soul timeline for ourselves and for the collective, because that also opens the way for them to come here when all they see is war and greed and hurting each other because we're different. That is not a very enticing way to come or invitation to come to the planet and interact with humanity. But they do love us very, very much. They are very aware of us, very proud of us, light workers, and the work we are all doing in our own segments that make a contribution. So make no mistake, it is going to increase. You're going to see more and more. There's going to be so much to talk about. And we are on the brink of this happening, meeting ourselves in the future and becoming part of the galactic community.
I can't wait for that. That makes me want to cry because my heart is so wide open. It really is. And so, okay, the Pleiadians, they said we've waited too long. And so it's continuing. And so we're seeing it one heart at a time, right? With people channeling these messages. And it's really quite fascinating. So we are ET, they are us in the future. And it is nothing to be scared of. In fact, would you say that for those who have fear, it's probably or likely that the system in place right now our government is the ones maybe that we should be in fear over because of what they're doing. There's the secret space program. We've heard of military folks who I've asked this to strangers I've met. You know, we were at a karaoke sing-along place, and I said, "Oh, you were in the military. Have you ever been off planet?" I just said that. Have you ever been off planet? And he got very kind of disturbed and he said, "Yes, I have." And then he left to go compose himself. And his girlfriend was like, "You can't talk to him about that. He gets really upset." And it was like, "Ooh, wow." Right? So there's these stories. And so I guess my question is now benevolent or malevolent? And I would think that the ones who are here to do harm is probably already in place on this planet. Yeah. And so, wow, what does one need to do to make this connection? Simply go outside. I've heard recently people get up early in the morning, maybe 3 or 4 in the morning, and they just sit under the stars and they see many, many things. They say
Mhm.
it's busy up there, and maybe it's satellites, but there's a difference between satellites and things that move fast and rapidly. So that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Wow, very
To
interesting.
remember that, God bless this gentleman you spoke to at karaoke, because I also know someone in the military, and yes, also off planet. Amazing, these experiences. I will say it's important for everybody to remember that 5% is malevolent, 95% is benevolent. Those are great odds, great
Oh,
statistics.
that's
And what
so,
is malevolent? That's already taking place in the deep state. That's a
yeah.
lot of what
Okay.
is interacting with those very rich, greedy folks who just want fear to reign the earth,
Mhm.
anger, all these separations and disconnects, our original wound of separation, which is an illusion. And so we can't let them win. I've asked myself that because the more I learned about some of these things, very difficult to digest. I come from a lot of joy. I have a huge heart, and I love deeply, and it's really hard to learn these things. Like it's a terrible novel. How is this a reality on this planet? And I came to the conclusion, and I offer it to anyone else, where I had to ask myself, if the basis of metaphysics is we create what we think about, well, I could live here and just imagine what I'll bring about. But if instead I say, I'm not putting my head in the sand, but life is very short. And I've not been affected by them, not personally. I have certainly not had negative ETs come to me. I've not been, there's so many terrible things in one's imagination that could have happened, but none of them have. It has been so positive, so uplifting, such a beautiful journey. I choose to keep my focus there. And so that's what I recommend is whatever you choose to make of your life, that's where you want to put your focus. And I think that's an important point. And that's another reason why I've always chosen conspiracy theories. No, it's not for me. When something's the truth, I always know it, and I'm really good with it. But when when it's got all this stuff, and you could feel it in somebody or feel it in a magazine or feel it whatever source it is, there's too much darkness there. That is just simply not for me. There's nothing that's going to take over my light. And I, much like you, Loren, with you feeling that so deeply, how excited you are, because this is our family that we're going to be meeting, I feel the same. And so you have a mission, right? I have a mission, and we're part of the mission. Everybody here listening is in their way part of the mission of this happening. We agreed to this in our lifetime. And I think it's so important to remember to be that, to be all of that, so that invitation to them does feel safe, doesn't feel like they're going to be shot down or captured or all the many things that could happen. So we should remain excited and hopeful of all that's coming. And certainly even with just this year and next year, the next 30 years. For those who are young listening to your platform, I'm so excited for you. It's going to be a different world.
And so this is where we keep our immaculate focus, Debbie, is on the new that we're going to build. This is why so many in our audience are doing the work. We see the path of people coming in. They start to question, what are chakras? What is this energy in my field? How do I get rid of that? Or how do I clean that up? And then it becomes into, ooh, DNA activation. How do I do that? And then it goes cosmic. It is absolutely part of the journey. And so, as we are here to stand in our mission and to do our work, what do you think needs to be done, or what can we do to connect more deeply in that way? And this is where shamanism comes in as well, because I love how shamanism, the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this planet, have always been connected to the stars. They've never forgotten that. And so, isn't it amazing that their tool and methodology of shamanism actually connects with that? So, for those who are just beginning to seek out and wanting this contact, wanting to identify our star family, what do you think some of the protocol is, or what is that journey that's required to go down and discover that?
Buddhism is 4.5 million years old. And so the first shamans were women. And these goddesses, these shamans, were the ones who were the midwives. They had herbs to heal people. They were able to go into trance and transcend this reality to go into the star people, as well as other realms and ancestors, to bring back the healing and the wisdom for the people. And then many millennia later, especially in Siberia, you will see the shamans dress like women. They have makeup on, they have dress, even though they're males, because they're honoring the inception of the first shaman. And this indigenous people who knew came from the stars, who were in relation with the people from the stars, also understood this planet, and that we were to honor this beautiful sphere we're living on that houses us, clothes us, feeds us, all of us, the two-legged, the four-legged, the no-legged, the fin, the furred, all our relations, and that they were to honor. They never took without first paying homage. They understood that there was animism in everything, in the sky, in the mountains, in the rivers, in the plants that spoke, in the animals. And so I love this practice so much of shamanism, and why I'm a practitioner is because even when I do healings on people, on groups, I know they're receiving these activations. I know their chakras are getting cleared. I know they're getting downloads. I know things are shifting. And while I am doing it, because of what's pouring through me, I am shifting too. And in these times, we so require this. As I said, big shoulders that we all chose to come down during this time. And what we're living in, according to the Peruvians, is called the Pachacuti. Now, Pacha, many people think of as Pachamama, right? As Mother Earth. But Pacha means a time of change. Pachacuti means a time of change. Every 500 years, the Peruvians said, we were living in another epoch. This particular Pachacuti, big. And can you imagine those indigenous living high up in the Andes talking about this time? How in the world did they describe? But they certainly talked about the chaos and the necessary chaos and shakeup in order for the peace to finally ensue. They talked about the toxic masculinity in all of us needing to be seen so that finally the equality and the rise of the divine feminine in all of us could occur. They talked about when the North and the South finally come together to work and live together. And they represented that with the eagle and the condor flying together. And in shamanic medicine and the medicine wheel, the great eagle condor is in the east. And why do we love them? Because they give us the wings to fly with great spirit. They give us the wings to fly over the Apus and the sacred mountains we only dare to dream of. And they allow us to look down upon the vista of our life down below as we're flying high. And rather than the minutia of all the little things being in front of us where we get confused or we're not sure what's next, instead there's great distance so we can see down below and finally recognize the peace, the thread of our life that is the highest choice for our soul that we choose and become. And so they also say it is the time when finally we will stop living in our heads where we've been programmed to live. And instead, we will make the long journey to live in our hearts where love and compassion and understanding, forgiveness, harmony lives. And so, all these things are what's going to change the planet and are all the things we're in the midst of happening. And these shamanic practices are so important. Everything simple as going outside, as you spoke about earlier, you can moon bathe, which is a beautiful practice, and get wisdom codes from the moon. You can take off your shoes, put your feet in the grass, and let your roots go down and just breathe with Mother Earth. Ask her for wisdom. And then, of course, the many things you were talking about, Loren, there's so much available. I'm teaching right now shamanism level 1, and I realized I was a no. And this is another awakening. I was a no when my students asked me over and over with all my programs, will you actually teach me shamanism? And then I got in December this, it is time. So I open up the program and it is happening. And there's so much beauty in this subject, so many healing practices to learn that I have been very clear about segmenting this so everybody can learn each piece and get the practices and the tools down and they build on each other. But I feel very honored to have been given the nudge to start to work with people on this because these tools, not just to receive, which is also very powerful, but also to start to learn how you can use them in your life. And then there's the aspect you brought up earlier, which is profound. Animal spirit medicine. Animals are not even from this planet. Animals, there are whole planets, the lion beings from where I come from originally. There's bear planets, octopus, dolphins, Sirius, A and B, and so forth. They don't look like us in these other galaxies by any means. And so these beautiful animals, these sweet, innocent animals, came here with their own wisdom to also learn the medicine of these animals and how you can work with them. And that alone has changed my life. And also, I'll add this other piece to understand when the animals visit you, what does that mean? For instance, we had a huge cacophony of bird noises in front of our house. And it was like arresting when it happened. Everything stopped in the house. We had to go outside. And we came to find this beautiful owl in our tree. And this owl just turned its head sitting on the tree and looked right down, eyes locked into us. And I am aware I'm receiving owl medicine. What a gift. And that owl stayed there all morning, all afternoon, into the night.
Wow. Ooh.
So when that happens to you, do you know what to do? Or sometimes if an animal gives up its life for you, do you know what to do with that medicine or what it means? So all of this, I think, taking it back to the ancient, the original, they knew. They had the answer to peace on earth, the answer to peace amongst us, how to heal one another, how to grow crops, thank and live at peace with the animals, and not take without ever giving back, having balance and restoration. So I feel at this critical point we are right now, it is a beautiful time to go back to these original healing tools and methodologies that are here for us.
It is so exciting, and you are so inspiring because we can, listening to you speak, we can see this great shift that's going on through the chaos that's going on. And I think it's everyone watching, it's their role, let's say, the role of the light worker to stabilize that field, to influence with love, and to keep people from, because people are just so, what do you want to call it, edgy right now, that they'll spout off and not aware that those words that they're spouting off, that negativity, let's call it, lower frequencies like that, are actually continuing to create that reality. So it's really important that we, all of us watching a program like this, step up into that role to then lead a hand up for others, to get ourselves in order first, to connect that way, but then to assist others in doing it. So you're doing a beautiful job. Thank you for following the nudge to share this with others and to help others step into it. Um, I love the fact that you saw the owl. All right, so that's owl medicine. And we're going to talk because you're doing a special event, a mastery empowerment class on New Earth One Network on a shamanistic with the animals. And you're going to be working with the owl as well as a few other animals. But what is this connection with owls and ETs? Tell
Yes,
us about that.
it's true. Many people who see owls, they're extraterrestrials. But I will say so about other animals. I know too many people who have spoken to me about a particular animal, and they're like, that animal should never have been there. Like this animal was not indigenous to this area, and all of a sudden something appears. When that
Mhm.
happens, it's often a deer, it's an owl, and that's because the extraterrestrials know that if they revealed their organic form,
Ah,
most people visually would not be able to handle it or they'd become too frightened. But everybody loves an animal. They love an owl. So they're very open to that. And also, if it's not an extraterrestrial situation, you can also remember owls are portends. Often, some people get freaked out. They're like, oh, it's about death. But it's not always like that. Yes, sometimes you will get a call after somebody passed and they're coming to let you know. But they're really initiations, what they're about. Owls about taking you over the threshold. They're about seeing in the dark, about what are you not seeing about you? Because the things we don't see are the things that hold us back. The things we don't see are where the light can't get in. And so Owl comes to shed that light because it can see through you, through the dark, into everything. And it comes to shed the light and help you transcend, be initiated into the next piece, the next rebirth of who you came here to be. So some of them have the energy, and people often who are taken and lose time will say, yes, I saw an owl. And then all of a sudden, it was the next day and I have no idea what happened, but I was standing in my backyard, something like that. That's clearly an extraterrestrial visitation. And then other times, it really is about its medicine coming to visit you and bless you.
all right, thank you for sharing on that. And so the medicine from animals, this is really inspiring. I know I'm not the only one looking back at times I saw things. And even when animals show up in public places that are not, and we have a lot of white animals showing up now. Isn't that fascinating? Lions, the white lions of South Africa. It's just so beautiful, and that's significant too. But this is important. It's the sacred animal spirit codes because there's medicine that comes from it. So this is a good moment. Tell us about this upcoming class that you've got, the shamanistic animal, sacred animal codes. You're going to be working with the owl and two others because this year of the fire horse, wow, we get to feel that horse energy. And after last year of the snake, which I was born the year of a wood snake. My God, that was last year was definitely shedding old skin. So what's in store this year and how is your class going to support our journey through this year of the horse, the fire horse?
Beautiful. Yes, for all of us. The year of the wood snake was no joke. A lot of surrendering. And where the wood snake asked us, let go, the fire horse asks us to rise. You could just feel the energy
Okay.
of that. And I
Yeah.
specifically chose these three animals to work with in 2026 and, of course, beyond. Just so everybody knows, once you learn any of the animals' medicine, it is not indigenous to any year. You can call that into your life anytime you need it and work with it. So, the medicine specifically, I just shared about the owl and why it's so important. And so there is more shedding there. So where are the dark places we're not looking and so forth. And we'll be doing some in-depth activations around that, actually meeting the owl, having the owl work with you and receiving some profound shifts. We always have to clean before we add more. And because the year of the fire horse, which does start February 17th, 2026, this is a gallop. This is a fast year. This is also a year that is very important because it's a year of destiny. It is very important to have balance. So it is not just doing, taking, being. All those things are beautiful, but in balance. And the balance is about emotional intelligence. The places where we're wounded and we speak without feeling and we offend people. The places where we act without thinking first about the effect we're going to have on our lives or anybody else's. So there's many places I'll be talking about that are really important to check, and we'll be doing some healing work around that. Also, before we get to the horse, we're bringing in cheetah energy. And when you think about the cheetah, what's so stunning, besides just a magnificent creature from the savannah, is that this creature does not spend time thinking, wondering, on the fence, procrastinating at all. This is a decisive, fast, that's my goal, heading there, done. And it's one of the fastest animals. And so we're going to be bringing that wisdom into our bodies so we don't have to stay in that wavy gravy place anymore because the year we're heading into does not want to support that energy. So we're going to bring in a lot of medicine of the cheetah so we can work quicker and easier. And then, of course, the beautiful horse. Horses, anybody who's done horse therapy and has worked with horses or ridden horses or just seen them from a distance and they're sensitive can feel how the horse can regulate the nervous system. And so we're going to be working with the majesty of the horse, the freedom of the horse, but also knowing again, what is our purpose? Because we are very much being called to our authentic destiny this year. And we're being very assisted by the planetary information and codes that are coming down that are saying it is your time. You came here for this. You've cleared out last year. You're ready to run this year. So good to know what is yours, or be super open to following energy. Because if somebody doesn't know what's really theirs, it's okay. I have spent years following energy, which ultimately led me to where I am. And it was the most fun, amazing journey. And so to trust flow also about what keeps presenting that is the next for you to do and the next for you to do, it will ultimately lead you to where you are. So these three beautiful, powerful animals, the one of the night, the owl, the one of the desert savanna, the cheetah, and the one of the horse out in the meadows and the plains running free, are all of what we're going to call in to work with, but also to embody. So they live in us through the year and going forward, and we can call on them any time for their wisdom and their assistance.
We can already feel the energy of that. I can feel when you were talking about the cheetah, it was like, ooh, okay. And in the chaos in our world, I am sensing that the power in that for us to be decisive in our actions, to be very aware and decisive so that we can make decisions and get things done. Because there's no time, like the Pleiadians said, they're not waiting. I don't think we can wait any longer. We have to do that. So we can feel the energy and then feeling the energy of the horse as well. Just as you said that, we felt our nervous system totally calm down, like our heart beats along with the heart of the horse. And now I'm thinking of Avatar, where you hook into the avatar hooked into their dragon. And so, wow, very, very cool. This webinar is very special. Thank you for offering it. Again, those who would love to experience that, learn more about it on the link on this webpage or in the description box where you're watching this video on YouTube. It's all there and you can register. And you don't have to sign up and be there live. That is optimal, but it's also powerful when you listen to the replay as well or the recording because you're still in that energy. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that. And you were saying that you followed the energy. Can you expand on this for some who are not familiar with it? So it's two. It could be good energy, it could be not good energy. And so what do you do and how do you clear it? And how do you know what energy to follow? What does that look like?
It's something that I did organically, and I'm so grateful I did because I was in a very confusing time in my life, and I had been a professional actress and singer since I was a kid, and then into my adulthood, and all of a sudden, in a year that I got more work, more movies, more stage work, I started losing the passion, and that was unknown to me as a being. What do I do with that information? I resisted it for 3 years because that was unthinkable. That's who I was. That's who everybody knew Debbi Dachinger was, actress, singer. And all of a sudden, I was not feeling that. And so, after resisting it for 3 years and also not knowing the path forward, like if I'm not that, then what am I? I thought, I got nothing. I got to surrender. I literally have to let go. And I feel like I'm Persephone going inside the earth. And I have no idea who I'm going to be or what's going to happen by the time I come back out of inner earth. So that was the hard stuff. Like, oh, I've just lost my identity and nobody handed me a slip for the next step. So what I started to do, and honestly, I didn't think about it, Loren. I didn't like come up with this mastermind plan. It literally happened where something presented itself to me in this complete, I had let go of the singing and the acting, and something presented itself to me. And I thought, wow, that sounds so cool. I like to learn how to do that. And I would learn how to do it. And then big things would happen. Uh, so, for instance, I started making jewelry. And I loved it. I was just making myself jewelry. I took a jewelry class. I loved it. I loved being creative. And people saw what I was wearing and suddenly started saying, where can I get that? And I'm like, well, I made it. Can I buy it? Sure. And a business was created literally a month after I learned how to do jewelry. I started going around to stores, big stores, department stores in Beverly Hills, selling my jewelry. And so, chutzpah, I just had a lot of crazy confidence in myself. And I did that. And I loved that for a while. But there was always that feeling this is fun, but then it's not the it. And things just sort of, again, would open up for me. And then a band situation. Somebody heard me singing at a Christmas party and said, oh, wow, we have a big band and a jazz band. We lost our lead singer. We'd love you to do that. So, again, that feeling excitement. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds like fun. So those were the things that allowed me to follow energy. There was an opportunity. When the opportunity was given to me, I got excited. I felt in my belly this, "Oh, I don't know what that's about, but that sounds fun." And I would just go for it. And that would open up a whole world until the next thing opened up. That's literally what happened, thing after thing after thing. I did a cartoon at some point. Some producer recommended me for a cartoon, for a voiceover. I had never done them, but I got the script and I loved the script. And I got to sing as this big mouth bass. And so I got that job. And so it was fun, 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 excitement, excitement, expansion, expansion, expansion. I know today how important all of that was because eventually, at the end of the road of that many years of following energy, I fell in love with the voiceover stuff. I wanted to do more. I had an agent. It was very dry. They were sending me out for commercials and things. It wasn't, cartoons were my thing, and I wasn't getting enough. And then I saw an ad for radio 18 years ago. I saw an ad for radio. I said, oh, I can get my voice out there. And I took the job. And I got to tell you, I think the universe was rolling over laughing what they had to do to get me where I was supposed to be. But it was a very fun journey of following energy. They got me into radio, and the rest is history. I did this radio show, Dare to Dream, and a terrestrial station. I eventually parlayed that into podcasting. I eventually started writing books. I was on the media path, then I had my big awakening around ETs and shamanism, and then this whole other world. So that's what I mean by following energy. It is the deepest surrender, but it was a very joyful journey. There was zero head involved, there was no knowing, no thinking. But when something came to me, would you be interested in this? It was used a lot of times, no, but sometimes it was like, oh, that sounds pretty amazing. I would like to do that. Yes. And then that would become my life for a while, which led to the next and the next and the next.
So inspiring. Again, I just have to say that because we know how to do this. We've felt this in our lives. So the distraction, it's really important. I'm just going to, as we close our show, I'm just going to say that's really important not to be distracted, to be so cautious of the energy around our heart and what we're giving out. And you nailed it right there. You could have been leaving that world of movies and film and singing and dancing. That must have been hard, right? Because it's like everything that you knew. But instead of like worrying, you opened yourself up to the feeling and you followed the excitement. Not only that, but you lived your passion. And another important thing is you didn't do it because of the money, right? I mean, the money is a byproduct when we follow these threads of energy. When we follow the energy, when we follow our passion, the money that comes is a byproduct. But you didn't do that. You just went on the excitement. Did it make you feel good? Did it make you feel good? And that is quantum. Plus, you surrendered and there was no thinking. Again, that's quantum. You were quantum in your manifestation. So as we identify what is quantum, I'm going to let you fill in the blanks on that. What does that mean to you, Debbie? What is quantum?
Mm. Well, and one thought, and It's such a good thought while you were saying this. And I love what you were saying because hearing you reflect it back, Loren, I was thinking, oh, it's like the Marie Kondo of your life, right? You know, the woman who cleans the homes and
Yes.
she goes in and she says, what do I love? What don't I use? What don't I care about? What, anything that doesn't have the energy of love and joy and use in your life, bye-bye. And I feel like that's kind of what we can do with energy, right? How we follow our heart in the best way. And my understanding of quantum, and I have a very deep relationship with an understanding of it, it is the no thing. It is nothing. It is the complete space where nothing exists and where we can put what we prefer into massive creation. And we can come place something into the quantum to be manifested. And then we can come out to experience it and find proof of it. We can also go into this quantum where there should be no thing, but maybe there is something. And it is something that we don't prefer. And we know we don't prefer it because it's creating things in ourselves and in our lives that don't feel good, that feel dense and heavy. In Quechua, they call that hucha. And we don't want hucha in our lives. We want sami. And sami, another Quechua word, means fortune, bliss. And so in this quantum space, should you find something that had an inception of a thought and a belief or an experience you saw that you bought into, we can actually pull it out of the quantum because it no longer serves us and usually has lots of tentacles through our lives. You don't have to know all the tentacles, but you have to be willing to go in there to the no thing and pull that out. It's not yours anymore. It doesn't serve you. And then in that beautiful space of nothing, you put in what you prefer instead, and you come back out into this illusion of reality and experience it and enjoy it.
Perfect. I love that. That is so beautifully said. And it is our roadmap. So we've got this.
Mhm.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Debbi Dachinger, for this beautiful quantum conversation. Again, we are inspired and we're feeling the frequencies. And I know everyone's going to go connect deeply with their star family. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Any final thoughts as we say goodbye?
I feel so complete and I'm just so grateful to connect, with you as always, Loren. Thank you for your beautiful platform and your beautiful heart and for allowing a place for people like me to have a voice. I appreciate it.
We appreciate your voice and we appreciate all hearts who joined us here today. This world is shifting with every breath of our heart in light. And we hope that you are witnessing in your life all of these beautiful changes and manifestations. Thank you, Debbi. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Bye. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.